students of Reddit, what was the craziest way you cheated on a test? I remember a story from my OChem professor. This student all semester who wasn't showing up to class kept getting his score improved significantly after regrades. They got their tests back, had a day to review them, and were allowed to resubmit for a regrade. They knew he was cheating because of the unlikelihood of grading mistakes on multiple exams, but the TAs who graded it couldn't confidently say it wasn't their handwriting. Ultimately, it was an office worker for the department who figured it out near the end of the semester. His staples were angled differently than the exams handed out that were mass stapled. He was recreating the test, printing it, re-answering it, and then grading it in the same pen as the TAs, and had done a good job copying the writing style. Not sure if this would work anymore, but if I had a paper to write on a book I didn't read, I would find a well-written paper online. Then translate the entire thing from English to German, German to French, French to Spanish, then Spanish back to English. Pull the original paper and the new one up side by side and clean up the grammar on the new paper, and you've got the same concept, but written just different enough to not be plagiarism. Worked like a charm. I'm a high school teacher, but this story is about my own high school math teacher playing us and cheating. It was an honors algebra/geometry class, and it was well known that Mr. D reused the same questions every year, just changed the numbers. He made a big deal about making sure we all gave our exam papers back to him after we had looked at our scores and gone over everything together to prevent cheating for the next year. Well, of course, some of my classmates got their hands on a complete set of tests from the previous year. Soon, everyone had a set. Before each exam, we would sit together and make sure we knew how to solve every problem on that test so we could do it on the real exam with different numbers. Years later, when I became a teacher myself, I saw Mr. D at a funeral. I confessed to him that this is what we used to do. He smirked and said, "Who do you think leaked the test packet to get you to study?" Mr. D had figured out that kids won't study if the teacher suggests it, but if they think they're getting away with something, they totally will, so he managed to get a test packet out and circulating as contraband. Blew my mind. Honestly, that's super smart. The world would be a better place with more teachers like Mr. D. I have had some teachers like him, and they are the only reason I made it through school. Not the student but the teacher. So, the teacher, let's call him Mr. A, had a reputation for being a phenomenal teacher who had every student engaged/invested in his class, no matter how mundane the subject. Anytime he asked a question, every student's hand would shoot in the air with them shouting things like "call on me" or "I know the answer." Simply, Mr. A developed a reputation in the district as one of its best teachers. Fast forward a couple of years and I'm grabbing coffee with Mr. A and I asked him, "What's your trick? How did you get every student bought in?" His response was, "Well, I told the kids every time we had a visitor in class, I need you all to raise your hand like I was giving away free candy. But if you don't know the answer, raise your left hand. If you do know it, raise your right hand, so I know who to call on and we all look good." Worked like a charm. As a student, I remember when my entire year level was accused of cheating, as the test results came back consistently high. What the teachers failed to realize was that some of the answers were actually hidden in other questions. So if you got stuck on one question, you could find the answer later on in another question. An example would be, this was a Japanese language test, what does this word mean? And later on, a question would use that word in context, so you would understand what that word meant. In high school I was in a computer-based learning program and our science tests were taken digitally. However, they used a program where once you entered the test your entire screen was locked into the test and the only way to exit it was to click the finish button on the test or turn off your computer, which effectively did the same thing. Another feature of the program was that once you were in the test, anything you had in your clipboard, copied text, was not able to be pasted into the answer sections on the test to prevent the only other way to cheat. However, after creating my own classroom at home, making fake tests, and playing with the program to figure out a way to cheat, I realized that it would allow you to copy things from inside the test and paste them elsewhere in this test. The developers of the program also did not take into account the sign-in screen where you have to find the test and enter it. Long story short, I could copy my entire page of notes I had taken on the test material, and paste it into the section where I would enter my login information. Then recopy it, enter the test, and paste it again in one of the answer sections, using it to answer every question and then deleting it before clicking finish. So, not a teacher, but I witnessed probably the biggest cheating-related scandal in our high school's history. For context, we had the sweetest old guy as our chem teacher. He called everyone bud or buddy or ma'am, he always helped, and he volunteered to teach driver's ed after school so kids could learn to drive. He always had a twinkle in his eye because he genuinely showed love and kindness to everyone. A side effect of this was that he was very trusting. So one day, before finals, he ran to the bathroom during class while everyone was wrapping up their lab reports. While he was gone, someone ran to his desk, found the finals just sitting there, snapped a pic, and then ran back to their desk before he got back. Somehow, no one tattled. Probably because 90% of our grade level in that class was on board with it. The pictures got texted around, but a few people were smart enough to Bluetooth into each other so it couldn't be tracked. Well, after the test, everyone had high scores and apparently someone confessed. This resulted in a huge investigation by the assistant principals, school police officer, and faculty. They traced every text message and busted so many people, all except the ones who transferred via Bluetooth. They had to reissue the test. Man, that was crazy. I felt so bad for the teacher. He was really sad someone had taken advantage of him, and I was too. Such a good dude. Edit, oh hot damn, thanks for the gold. Edit 2, to clarify, the school didn't trace the messages. They just had 1v1 interviews with the school cop nearby so kids would feel pressured to snitch. Apparently, a few cracked under the pressure, but a fair number got away with it. Edit 3, also, the cop was our school cop. Real badge, gun, car, he was just there to protect us against school shooters, bombers. He patrolled for loiterers, ran drug searches, ran security for after-school events and pep rallies, etc. So, no actual police force was present, just this guy. I was supervising a final chemistry exam along with another co-worker. Not 15 minutes in, a hand slams down on a desk and I turn around expecting the worst, only to see my co-worker angrily shouting at a pair of really frightened 10th graders whose desk he smashed. Amidst the shouting I caught the words, Morse code. The guy proceeded to take them to the office. I called a hallway supervisor to take over and ran after the group. Apparently, the kids were silently tapping the answers amongst themselves in Morse code. Not even with their fingernails, just their fingertips. I never heard a thing. My coworker happened to catch B in Morse code or something. I honestly thought he finally went crazy solely because of his appearance. Picture Robin Williams in Jumanji going, "What year is it?" I'm 100% sure that if this coworker weren't in the room, they'd have gotten away with it for sure. I can't condone cheating, however, if you went through the trouble to learn Morse code you should get a pass. What bad luck that probably the only teacher in the school that knew Morse code was supervising that exam. So, as a teacher, the smartest way I cheat is by giving the kids a note card and telling them they can put whatever cheat sheet stuff on there they want. It tricks them into actually studying for their math tests. Also, a pro tip from a math teacher: most students don't know how to study for math, and this is why they struggle. Think of studying math like practicing an instrument. You need to learn a piece by practicing multiple problems from skill set. If you aren't practicing at least 8 to 18 problems at least every day to 2 days, then you're never going to get past the little mistakes and missteps which have probably plagued you. Edit, please stop asking if I'm your old teacher, it's 99.99% likely that I'm not. This is a very common trick that many teachers use and have been using for decades. These are some methods I used back in the day. I wrote formulas on those pens that'd roll out calendars. Almost got caught when I accidentally lost my grip and the calendar rolled back in the pen in such a loud way that my classmates looked at me. I also wrote formulas on my clothes and body, the hem of my shirt, and the part of my legs that gets covered by a sock. I put a couple of chapters on the notebook app on the old BlackBerry. I did this by hand, which involved me copying straight from the book to my phone. Put answers in the song lyrics in my iPod. But I didn't do this frequently. I forgot why. It was either because my school had cracked down on technology, phones, iPods, laptops, or I just had a hard time scrolling with the click wheel. We'd straight up swap papers. I think I only did it during trig because during exams we were arranged alphabetically and I was seated next to this dude who was really good at math. I was afraid of doing this, but the fact that we were so close to each other made it less scary, so I did it. The only time I got caught was when this new teacher noticed that I kept taking out my handkerchief, which had a 1 by 1 inch piece of paper that had some formulas. In hindsight, if I pulled a bit of sleight of hand I would have never been caught. The funny thing is, the year before, I cheated on a test with 2-letter-sized papers. In my high school we had a Facebook group chat with almost all, students from the same year. So if 2 classes had the same teacher we would get the same tests, but we would always have the exam on the same day. So e.g. during the exam someone from my class would take a picture of the exam and post it in the group chat, and somebody from the other class that wasn't having the exam at the moment would send the answers back in the group chat. So everyone, almost, in class would be on their phones and see the answers from the group chat. Later the class that was giving us the answers would have the exam having all the answers already because as I said they would get the same exam as we did. Usually used for maths, chemistry, and physics. The fact that no one snitched is really impressive. But imagine finding out that the whole year has a group chat and you're not in it. Not a teacher, but definitely accused by one of cheating, though I wasn't. I think it's clever. High school, English class. We were reading 4 books in this 2-month period and then were to have a test on all 4. We had finished reading the first 3 and we're about to start on the last one, when I got sick. Was about 2 weeks. Came back just in time for the test. Multiple choice test, choices A to D. Questions were from each of the books, with each letter answer from one of the 4 books. It was fairly easy to figure out the answers from the book I hadn't read by eliminating the answers from the books I had. Was accused of cheating, but the teacher couldn't prove it. We only read the books in class, and I was gone while reading the last book. She never figured out how I answered the questions correctly about the book I never read. In some tests at university we had the questions projected on the white table/wall, so the whole class had the same test and we had multiple choice A, B, C, D, E, so the whole year agreed that for each of these letters, we should pair with a sign of holding the pen. If it's A, point your pen forward, B, point it to the right, C, to back, D, to the left and D, to upwards, and if you don't know the answer just put down your pen. So we just had to carefully look around for a moment and see what most pens are pointing at and we know the answer right away. Emote is the safest cheating, because there's no evidence and no teacher will notice if you made a careful peek for half a second. Obligatory, not a teacher, but a student. This is for a multiple choice exam. For context, we have uniforms and wear black leather shoes. Toe taps indicate the answer, 1 tap for A, 2 taps for B, and if asking, increments the question number by 1. Heel taps increments the question number by a previously agreed number, usually 5 or 10 toe/ to indicate you're asking, or when broadcasting means stopping the question number count to indicate the answer, or you lost your count and redo. A double/ sounds like erasing, then a small kick to the chair in front of you to alert or stop the exchange. This is barely noticeable yet easily heard as tapping your foot is quite normal. You'll only look nervous. Plus you can mix the toe and heel taps like a beat. A kick makes the chair squeak on the floor and serves as a distraction too. An exchange would go like this. HHTHHTHHTSTTTT, in the easily recognizable pattern of Queen's We Will Rock You, tells the question number is 33, with the answer D, separated with a single slash. Anticlimactically, we were caught by our teacher during a mock test, and the first dry run of this code, only because the 2 guys whose way of cheating was caught ratted us out. When I was in grad school, I went to a prestigious and large university where a lot of people tried to cheat, and the cheating countermeasures they took were often so elaborate. People would try to tape helpful guides to the back of toilets or crumple them up and throw them into a trash can so that they could go to the bathroom and get them during the exam. As a result, the bathrooms were inspected and the trash was emptied at the start of every exam and students were accompanied to the bathroom. Hats weren't allowed because students would try writing things on the underside of the brim. You had to watch out for students who had written things on their bodies because they might be shifting in odd ways during the exams to get a look at them. There were special buildings that were only used for exams, and additional people were there to help proctor. Professors had to submit exams to the school a month in advance, and the school was responsible for securely photocopying and distributing them at the exam. My field, English, wasn't one where cheating was particularly a big problem, but we still had to take all the same precautions of more high-stakes fields. Chemistry is a big one because it is often a stumbling block for people trying to get into medical school. My high school trig professor administered all tests via programs he wrote for our in-class DI-83 calculators. Basically, it was just a simple set of questions and answers that automatically graded you after each question. I quickly realized I could just close the program and inspect the code using the edit function, extract the answers, and give myself a high B or low A, never 100%, as that is a sure way to get caught. He soon realized students were doing this and obfuscated his code to make it much harder to find the answers by simple inspection. It took a little more work, but I was still able to find the answers, and he quickly began to suspect again that students were cheating. Later, he found a way to force the code to self-delete after it was run for the first time. He would start the test for each calculator before passing them out, so if you tried to access the edit, it would delete itself if you tried to run the program again. I ended up bringing a set of dead batteries of the same brand that he used, accessing the edit, replacing the batteries with the dead ones, and telling him the calculator died halfway through my test. I think I learned more about software testing than Trig that year. Man, these stories make me realize how boring my time in school was. Does anyone else feel like they got scammed when they hear about other people's school experience? Anyway, that's all for now. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and I will see you in the next one.